Welcome to the Miracle of America Museum, just south of Polson, Montana, along Highway US 93. The museum is the largest and most diversified museum in the state. We have 40 buildings in a village out behind this main building. We're going to be discussing this morning a particular purpose of the museum. Our main purpose is to try and reinstill belief in America and the free enterprise concept of government. But the word freedom is all-encompassing. Freedom carries with it a tremendous responsibility. So follow me on in and we'll start the main tour down below. Passing by 50 antique motorcycles, we tell the children that for every wheeled vehicle in the museum, whether it be toys or motorcycles or cars or trucks, every wheeled vehicle represents the freedom of travel in America. But along with that freedom comes a tremendous responsibility. We're going to talk about our DUI victim memorial. Here we see a picture of a fellow American Legion member and myself in my welding shop, in which I volunteered my welding time to make the white crosses, which you see along the highway. And to me, when I was a child growing up, all the white crosses represented a place that I needed to be extra alert. As I was building the two white crosses in the picture there for Anita and Jana, pictured in the memorial here, a feeling came over me that maybe I could do more. And I called the state, I talked with the governor's office and the Attorney General Missouri's office, and found out they did not have a memorial. They wished me the best in assembling a memorial. People would bring pictures of their loved ones, that's as you see pictured here, and some people have come back to this kind of almost like they're visiting the grave. These are from all ages, from child on up to aged, and people who have lost loved ones, in this case to a DUI, to a drunk or drug impaired driver. Anita and Jana are pretty much the same age as most of the school groups we get, maybe they're a little older. But they were on their way to Kalispell, wearing their seatbelts, driving safely. On the other side of Elmo Bay on Flathead Lake, a drunk driver crossed the center line and hit them head on and killed both girls. Now, the point I make is that, ironically, the man that hit them was an emergency room doctor and had taken a Hippocratic oath to never do harm. But because he had been drinking and driving, he was physically and mentally impaired, possibly didn't even realize he'd crossed the center line and killed these two innocent girls. Perhaps his friends were drinking with him at the bar and said, "Oh, I think you've had enough now." And he says, "Oh, I can drink if I want to. This is a free country." He said he was free to do his own thing, to travel while he'd been drinking. But do you think he's free today in his mind? Or will he always have some remembrance, even if he tries to get it out of his mind, that he killed these two innocents because he'd been drinking and driving? And that includes drugs. Today we have texting also to distract drivers. Well, we have laws on the books and more recently added that makes driving and under the influence illegal, immoral, irresponsibly. So we're trying to train them when they're young. And we have had community service workers who, some of them have been picked up for MIP, or minor in possession, that come out here and do community service work, like pulling weeds, picking rocks, that sort of thing. And part of their sentence, what I've required them to come down here with a pad and pencil and sit down on this bench here and study this wall and the messages on here, and then write me a full page report on their feelings. And you know, I've had some almost tear-jerking stories. There's some that have said, you know, I didn't realize how serious it was, and I see these pictures on the board and realize I could have caused another picture to come onto this victim memorial board. Okay, when I decided to start this memorial, I talked with the parents of the main two victims, and I talked with a few others. One elderly gent gave me a picture of his mother, who was killed by a drunk driver in 1923. And it doesn't matter the age at all, but I needed a place to put it, and our museum was very crowded because we have so much. I had this antique alcohol-related things in this corner over here, including the Model Tavern, which was on Main Street in Polson. When after I got out of the military, I served as a police relief cop when people went on leave or needed extra cover. And one time, there was a drunk out on the street changing a flat tire on his pickup, and I stopped and I asked him who he was going to get to drive him home. And would you believe all his friends come storming out of the bar? They were going to whoop up on me. I was on a solo duty, and I was actually in fear of what they were going to do to me. And I tried to enforce on their minds that I was merely trying to save his life from driving drunk. Well, apparently they got him home, but years later he did kill himself driving drunk. You won't change some people's minds by passing laws. That's a problem. We're trying to teach them while they're young. So getting back to where I wanted to put this, on this corner I had alcohol-related things. Over on this side I had funerary things, from the horse-drawn hearse to the caskets to anything from funeral home, the organ back there, and so forth. And I thought, what a perfect spot to put this memorial display. So it's sandwiched between the alcohol and death. And so we want to get a close-up of a metal sculpture I put together. I put together two of them. The other one is in another spot, and DUI victim. And I showed a crushed car wheel and an arm and an alcohol bottle and a beer can and the label, "Who wants to get bashed tonight? Raise your hand." And so I've actually had a woman that she was a little bit taken aback because she remembered that exact site when her daughter was killed. Our message is that every freedom carries a responsibility. So hopefully by them remembering motorcycles, cars, whatever, even little toys that they play with, carries a responsibility. We also have a little bit of an aside on our drug memorabilia, my self-imprisonment display, and that little figure representing a human with all kinds of drug paraphernalia in there, needle, a bud, various drug-related things. That was a protective thing over a light bulb in an explosive gas situation where they needed light. And I said, isn't it interesting how potheads, meth heads, users, addicts, alcoholics, et al. Brandish the phrase, "Leave me alone, I want to be free to do my own thing." Many, if not most, will become self-imprisoned. True freedom is dependent on personal responsibility. Or I'd like to see the local courts have this be a part of their sentence, to have a report after they've come down here and viewed this for about a half hour. So I hope I've given you some insight to our mission. Overall, the mission of the museum is to reinstill belief in America, but the Constitution guaranteed freedom, and you can only be free if you act responsibly. Thank you.